Just imagine this. The most powerful nation on earth picks up the phone and threatens the world's largest democracy. They expect fear, they expect silence, they expect India to bow instantly the way smaller nations have bowed for decades before. Instead, something happened that no one in Washington predicted, something that stunned diplomats, traders, and world leaders alike. India looked back at America and simply said, "No." This is the real story of how a warning meant to crush India's spirit ended up exposing something far bigger. A nation that refuses to kneel anymore, no matter how loud the threat sounds, no matter how powerful the voice behind it. It started quietly, almost unnoticed by most people around the world. In 2025, the United States began pressuring India over its trade choices, its energy deals, and its long friendship with Russia. Washington wanted India to fall in line, buy less Russian oil, and open its markets completely on American terms, without asking for much in return. When India hesitated, weighing its own interests instead of rushing to obey, America did what it always does with smaller economies. It threatened tariffs. It expected India to fold within days, the way many nations have folded before under similar pressure. But India was not a small economy anymore, and that mistake would soon become painfully clear to everyone watching. Number 11. A history lesson America forgot. To understand why this moment mattered so much, you have to look back at how India used to respond to pressure decades ago. In the 1990s and even in the 2000s, India often adjusted its policies quickly whenever Washington raised its voice about trade. Economists called this dependency, a smaller economy bending to keep its biggest customer happy no matter the cost at home. But somewhere between then and now, the balance of power quietly shifted, even if most of the world had not noticed yet. India had grown into the fifth largest economy on the planet, with ambitions far bigger than simply pleasing foreign capitals. This time, when the phone rang from Washington, the India that answered was simply not the same nation anymore. It was an India with its own satellites, its own vaccines, its own digital payment system used by hundreds of millions of people every single day. It was an India that had learned, slowly and painfully, that respect on the world stage is never given freely. It must be earned through patience and results. Number 8. The silent buildup. Before any tariff was announced publicly, tension had already been building for months behind embassy closed doors. American officials wanted faster answers on Russian oil, wanted quicker access to Indian markets, and wanted louder public commitments. India kept giving careful, measured responses instead of dramatic promises, frustrating officials who expected quick surrender. This patience was often misunderstood by outside observers who did not understand how India actually operates. In truth, it was the calm of a nation choosing its moment rather than reacting out of fear or desperation. Every careful word chosen by Indian diplomats during this period was designed to buy time, gather allies, and prepare for whatever came next. Number 7. The first tariff shock. Washington slapped a 25% tariff on Indian goods entering America, a number designed purely to hurt and to send a message. Textiles, seafood, gems, and jewelry all suddenly became more expensive for American buyers overnight, shaking entire industries back home. Indian exporters panicked for a moment, watching years of hard work threatened by a single signature in Washington. But something strange happened next. Instead of begging for mercy, Indian industries started looking for new buyers across the globe. The European Union, the Gulf nations, and Southeast Asia suddenly became far more attractive trading partners than before. America thought India would come running back within weeks, desperate and apologetic. But India did not come running at all. Number 6. The punishment tariff. When the first warning did not break India, Washington raised the pressure even higher, doubling tariffs to a punishing 50%. The reason given was simple and pointed directly at India's independence, its continued purchase of discounted Russian oil. America wanted India to cut ties with Moscow completely, treating New Delhi like a nation that simply takes orders. 50% tariffs meant more than half of India's exports to America became painfully expensive almost instantly overnight. Analysts in New York and London predicted a full economic surrender from India within a matter of months at most. But inside India, a very different mood was building, one of quiet, determined anger rather than fear or panic. Number 5. India refuses to blink. Indian officials did not rush to Washington with apologies or promises to change course overnight under pressure. Instead, Prime Minister Modi's government made a bold decision that shocked trade analysts watching from around the world. India would protect its farmers, its dairy industry, and its energy independence, no matter what tariffs America imposed on its exports. Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal made it clear publicly that India would not trade away its agriculture sector under any pressure. This was not stubbornness for its own sake. This was a nation protecting millions of families who depend entirely on farming. The world watched closely, waiting to see if India could actually survive this long standoff with a global superpower. Number 3. The moment America blinked first. By early 2026, something remarkable happened that almost nobody in the West saw coming or predicted. President Trump announced a new trade deal, cutting tariffs on Indian goods from 50% down to just 18%. Read that again. America, the nation that issued the original warning, was the one making the major concession. The punishing 25% penalty tied directly to Russian oil purchases was completely removed from the table entirely. India had not surrendered on Russia, had not fully opened its markets, and had not abandoned its farmers to pressure. Yet the tariffs came down anyway, because Washington finally understood something important about modern India's growing confidence and leverage. Number 2. Farmers protected, factories saved. Inside the final agreement, India secured strong protection for its agriculture and dairy sector, an outcome many experts had called impossible earlier. Indian spices, tea, coffee, cashews, mangoes, and other farm products would enter America with zero duty attached to them. This mattered deeply because it meant millions of Indian farming families were shielded completely from the chaos of global trade wars. Meanwhile, India's 18% tariff rate ended up lower than the rates imposed on China, Pakistan, and Bangladesh. Think about that for a moment. India walked out of this fight in a stronger position than most of its neighbors. The nation that was supposed to be punished the hardest ended up winning better terms than countries that never dared to challenge America at all. Number 1. The moment the world changed how it sees India. This is the real reason America ended up speechless, not because of one single deal, but because of what that deal actually proved. For the first time in decades, a rising power stood face to face with the United States and refused completely to be bullied into submission. India did not abandon Russia, did not sacrifice its farmers, and did not apologize for choosing its own independent path forward. And still, America came back to the table with a far better offer than anyone had ever thought was possible. This sent a powerful message, far beyond just trade numbers and tariff percentages, to capitals all around the entire globe. Nations from Africa to Southeast Asia started watching India differently after this, as living proof that standing firm against pressure actually works. Even inside Washington, quiet conversations began shifting behind the scenes, acknowledging that India in 2026 is simply not the India of the past. The reaction beyond the negotiating table told its own powerful story about what had just happened between these two nations. Indian stock markets, which many expected to crash under the weight of 50% tariffs, actually held steady through the entire crisis. Business leaders across Mumbai and Bangalore spoke publicly about diversifying trade partners instead of panicking about losing access to America.
The Indian diaspora spread across America, Britain, and the Gulf watched proudly as their homeland refused to be pushed around on the world stage. Social media in India buzzed with a single feeling, pride, as ordinary citizens realized their country was no longer just reacting to bigger powers. Even rival nations in the region took notice, watching carefully how India managed to protect its interests without losing its most important trading relationship. This is what real strength looks like on the global stage, not shouting louder, but standing firmer while everyone else waits nervously to see what happens next. Foreign newspapers that once described India as a nation always seeking approval suddenly began describing it as a nation setting its own terms. That change in language, small as it may seem, reflected a much bigger change happening quietly beneath the surface of world politics. But why did America really back down in the end? The answer lies far deeper than most people realize today. India is no longer just a market to sell products into cheaply. It has become a market the entire world cannot afford to lose. With over 1.4 billion people, a booming middle class, and rapidly expanding manufacturing power, India represents the kind of future growth America desperately needs for itself. Cutting India off completely would have pushed New Delhi even closer to China and Russia, exactly the outcome Washington fears the most. America needed India far more than its own tough talk and public threats ever admitted openly to the world. And India knew it all along, and that quiet, unshakable confidence is what changed the entire outcome of this story. For generations, India was seen by the world as a nation that simply reacted to global pressure instead of shaping global events on its own terms.
That old, outdated image is dying now, replaced slowly by a country that negotiates as a true equal, not as a subordinate waiting for instructions. This did not happen by accident or by luck. It happened because of decades of quiet, patient nation-building behind the scenes. Roads, ports, factories, technology hubs, and a self-reliant defense industry all became India's silent weapons in this long economic fight. Every farmer who kept working through uncertainty, every worker who kept building through tariff threats made this remarkable outcome possible in the end. Every engineer designing chips, every entrepreneur building startups, and every scientist advancing renewable energy added another brick to this quiet foundation of strength. None of them made headlines during the tariff war, yet all of them were the real reason India could afford to say no when it mattered most. Strength like this cannot be built in a single year. It takes decades of steady, unglamorous work that most people never notice until the moment it is tested. This is not just a story about tariffs and trade percentages that most people will forget within a single year. This is a story about an ancient civilization refusing to be pushed around after centuries of being told what to do by others. When America issued its original warning, it expected fear, quick apology, and rapid surrender, the same tired pattern seen for decades before. Instead, it received calm confidence, patient negotiation, and a nation completely unwilling to trade away its dignity for short-term relief or comfort. That is exactly why the world is now watching India with new eyes, wondering carefully what this rising power will do next on the global stage. The warning was meant to remind India of its place in the global order, a place beneath America's shadow. Instead, it reminded the entire world that India no longer accepts being placed anywhere by anyone else, not even a superpower. And that, more than any tariff number or trade agreement ever could, is the real story hidden here. A nation that once whispered quietly on the global stage has finally learned to speak with a voice too strong and too confident to ignore any longer. Every child growing up in India today will inherit a country that no longer whispers when a superpower raises its voice at the door. They will inherit farmers who were protected instead of sacrificed, factories that grew instead of closing, and a government that chose dignity over easy comfort.
That is the true legacy of this entire standoff, far more valuable than any single tariff percentage written into any agreement. Years from now, historians may look back at this moment as the exact point where the world stopped underestimating India completely and permanently. They may point to this single trade dispute as the moment a civilization of over 1 billion people finally stepped fully out of the shadow of others. Not because India shouted the loudest, but because it simply refused to move when everyone expected it to run. The next chapter of this incredible story is still being written, and for the first time in modern history, India is holding the pen.